Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here, and welcome back to yet another 5 tiny details you may have missed in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, I know it used to be 10, but, honestly, we're kinda running out of stuff. Listen, it's been a lot of years, okay? This would eventually happen. Nonetheless, we are only just getting started in Skyrim's Anniversary Edition. And we thought, what better way to ring in the occasion than with another top 5 details you may not have known from the world of Skyrim. So, grab your favorite potion or beverage, kick back, and get ready to relax, as we dive into 5 things you may have missed in The Elder Scrolls V. Alright, so to start off, I want to talk a little bit about a book that actually first appeared in The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, but also appears in Skyrim, called Children of the Sky. Now, Children of the Sky is a very short read. It's one of those books that's only a couple of pages. However, because it first appeared in The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, it's actually a little bit more significant than you might otherwise think. You see, when Morrowind released in 1998, this was really the first time anyone in the Elder Scrolls universe ever got an opportunity to even read about the province of Skyrim. So, the contents of this book really were in many ways some of Bethesda's first conceptions of what this province would become. Anyway, I'm not gonna read the whole thing to you, it's still a little too long for that. However, I do want to read the first paragraph that appears on the first page. Quote, "Nords consider themselves to be children of the sky. They call Skyrim the throat of the world, because it is where the sky exhaled the north winds on the land and formed them. They see themselves as eternal outsiders and invaders, and even when they conquer and rule another people, they feel no kinship with them, especially the Chimer and Dwemer." Okay, so what does this quote mean exactly? It seems like normal Skyrim lore stuff. Well, look at that first sentence, or it's not really, you know what I mean. Quote, "They call Skyrim the throat of the world because it is where the sky exhaled the north winds on them and formed them." Now, I find this sentence particularly noteworthy because it reminds me of an instance from the quest Dragon Slayer that appears at the end of the game. For those of you who don't remember, or who haven't played through it in your Anniversary Edition yet, Dragon Slayer is the quest wherein the player visits Sovngarde and finally defeats Alduin once and for all. Interestingly, at the end of that quest, a god by the name of Sun, who is considered to be the sort of defender of Sovngarde, shouts the player back to the mortal world with a dragon shout, and you reappear none other than at the throat of the world, right in front of party snacks. Mind you, this isn't where the player enters Sovngarde from either. We enter Sovngarde through Alduin's portal at Skuldafn. So, we know Bethesda did this on purpose. They knew what they were doing. They were trying to make that lore connection. The only question is, what more could it mean? Next on our list, longtime fans of the Lord of the Rings trilogy may enjoy this little detail. You see, in Skyrim, and really the entire Elder Scrolls universe, there exists a dragon known as Akatosh. Akatosh is the Lord of Time, and thought to be the father of all dragons. It's his children we fight against during the events of Skyrim. But, what some of you may not know, is that Akatosh is actually formed from an acronym of a peculiar saying. What do we mean exactly? Well, that name was inspired by a company beta tester by the name of Lawrence Lawrence liked to regularly cite and even sign off with the phrase, also known as the Old Smog himself, or AKA TOSH, as he started using in posts. Several other game developers also ultimately ended up using this strategy and incorporating their names into the game itself, as divine beings. For a third spot, even 10 years after the Elder Scrolls V's release and several versions of Skyrim repackaged and several ESO additions and add-ons and what have you, Ulfric Stormcloak remains one of the most memorable figures in the entire franchise. Now, this is in spite of the fact that Bethesda seems to have purposefully made Ulfric Stormcloak's backstory vague and difficult to understand. Neither the game's main story, nor very many of the side quests from Skyrim Civil War seem to give us much insight on where this guy came from. At least, Directly, that is. You see, by speaking with certain characters at the right place and time, occasionally, in between certain quests, we can extract just a bit of information about this man's history. Take a listen to the following quotes by both members of the Greybeards and some of Ulfric's Stormcloak's fellow members of Skyrim's government.
Ulfric can tell you more than most anyone. He was studying to be a Greybeard himself back before the Great War.
I was assigned to Ulfric's guard. We were on our way to Darkwater Crossing in the south of Eastmarch. The Imperials were waiting for us. As pretty an ambush as I ever saw. We were outnumbered 5 to 1 at least. Ulfric ordered us to stop fighting. Didn't want us all to die for nothing, I guess. I thought they were taking us south to Cyrodiil, parade us in front of the Emperor. But then, we stopped in Helgen, and you know the rest.
You're Dragonborn. The rules don't apply to you. You can shout the way dragons do, without training, through inborn instinct. They always hope to teach a Dragonborn to respect the way of the voice as they do. They never fully succeed. You'll have to make your own decision. It's a beautiful philosophy, but outside the seclusion of High Hrothgar, I was never able to hold to it. Yes, although I rarely use my training. The Greybeards believe the voice should be used only for worship of Kinnereth. I have fallen from their strict teaching.
As you can see, Ulfric does really have a well-fleshed-out and colorful past. It's just not intentionally explained to us. It's not a big part of Skyrim's broader narrative. Instead, it just gives us a little bit more insight on the character. And quite frankly, we think Bethesda did a really good job with this. Because as you read more and more into Ulfric's story, you can really see how his big temper defines all of his actions. It's the reason why he left the Greybeards, it's the reason why he's trying to become Jarl, it's the reason why Skyrim is in the middle of a civil war. And it's clearly not always good. As you can see blatantly, Ulfric's Stormcloak keeps getting captured. He keeps getting into fights he can't win without help. Of course, that's not to say that the Imperial Legion is a cup of tea either, but this additional context really does help put the Civil War into perspective. It's a big conflict, and there really is no clear right or wrong choice. I suppose the only winning move is just not to play at all. For a fourth spot, this one is honestly less of a detail and more of just an excuse for us to do a cool montage in the video, but I digress. One of the things The Elder Scrolls V has always been known for since its release those many years ago are its bugs. They're everywhere. Flying horses, giants that can send you to space, massive chickens, you get the idea. But one bug that we've never covered on this channel before, and only recently found out about ourselves, is the fact that players can actually survive any amount of fall damage at all by simply executing a sneak attack and a finishing move on another NPC. Now, that at first sounds like an oddly specific bug with oddly specific instructions, but it actually makes a lot of sense if you understand the mechanics of Skyrim. When a finishing move is being executed, for all intents and purposes, the player stops controlling their character for a period of time. And with that loss of control, no damage can be dealt to you. You can't receive any, because you're not really the Dragonborn anymore. That's just the engine doing all of the work. And the great thing about sneak attacks is you can increase your likelihood of getting one by upgrading the right perks and putting on the right armor. By adjusting the proper values, your chances of success are accelerated, and if I recall correctly, you can get them all the way up to 100% without even using console commands. Combine this with another bug we talked about many years ago, which allows players to avoid fall damage by consuming Netch Jelly and paralyzing themselves, and you realize that it's actually possible to play through Skyrim 100% of the time without ever taking an ounce of fall damage at all. Boom! Mitten Squad got your next video idea if you haven't done that already. Trust me, bro, I know how it feels. Now, before we get to our final spot, there is one honorable mention that I would like to share. And there's two reasons that I include this one. Reason number one is that this honorable mention revolves around cut content. A piece of the game that was removed and isn't really experienceable without console commands or some sort of data mining. The other reason is that I've recently been informed that the detail we just included about fall damage is a lot harder to perform than I previously thought it was, and my writer agrees, so we decided to throw this one in there as a little bit of a consolation. Anyway, I digress. In order to understand this fact, we need to talk a little bit more about Sovngarde. You see, we all know what Sovngarde is, right? It's that place we go to towards the end of the game where we meet Alduin, face those creatures. You get it. We talked a little bit about it in our first detail. However, the lore behind Sovngarde is where the interest really lies here. You see, this realm is supposedly controlled by the Nordic god Sjor, or Lorkhan as he's known to by elves. Apparently, all Nords who die valiantly with some form of honor are welcomed into the gates of Sovngarde, where they get to experience the rest of eternity in paradise. However, it seems as though there is an end to this eternity at some point in time. Like, this heaven world they're living in apparently seems to, well, eventually stop. We know this because the Elder Scrolls universe has something called a Kalpic cycle. Basically, this means that the entire universe and all of its creatures essentially reset every few thousand years. In fact, the whole plot of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is that the current Kalpa we're in is kind of broken because the dragons did something wrong. It's a long story. You kinda can see where I'm going with this. If you want to know more about Kalpas, there's actually a lot of Hindu literature on this that seems to explain the concept better than the current sources we have in Bethesda, but nonetheless. The reason I bring all of this up is to prepare you for a single line of cut dialogue that I'm about to play. This line of dialogue is something any Nordic NPC in Sovngarde at all, in theory, is capable of saying, at least according to the game's engine. However, none of them ever do because there are certain conditions necessary for this saying to trigger that never activate. We're not sure if Bethesda did this on purpose so as to remove this quote from the game's official lore, or if it was just an accident. Nonetheless, take a listen.
The Hall of Valor, where heroes wait to follow Sjor to the final battle.
Where heroes wait to follow Sjor into the final battle. The final battle. What exactly is he talking about? Well, again, we don't know because this is cut content. Whatever Bethesda was referring to clearly was either removed or just wasn't paid much attention to anyway. And there aren't any other references in the game to this final battle. However, other Elder Scrolls sources do provide us a little bit of potential context. In the Pocket Guide to the Empire, which is a physical booklet that shipped with copies of the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard in the 90s, dealt a little bit more with the concept of Kalpas and Sovngarde. And in that literature, it suggests that at the end of every Kalpa, the warriors of Sovngarde are released to fight with the Daedra and a mysterious, somewhat elven, evil-ish force or set of enemies. It's not very specific. It's very interesting that while with this unused line of dialogue, Bethesda seems to be acknowledging that plot line, yet it's not expanded upon much more in The Elder Scrolls V, the game. Like, we don't do anything with Sjor or with these warriors beyond fight Alduin. Is that supposed to symbolize something? Perhaps fighting Alduin does represent the restart of a new universe or something, and we're just interpreting it too literally. Whatever the case, there's a reason why this is just a honorable mention rather than a full-fledged detail. The speculation is up to us. And finally, last on our list, have you ever caught yourself staring at the stars in Skyrim? Have you ever been mesmerized by the two giant moon planets that cover the night sky of Tamriel? Well, if you have, then this detail is for you. Because these two giant celestial bodies are more than just, well, giant celestial bodies. You see, Khajiit culture holds the firm belief that their physical attributes are determined by the phases of these two moons, or their cycles as they're often called. Khajiits believe, and Bethesda's lore confirms, that depending on the alignments of these two planets, they'll be bipedal, quadrupedal, look more like lions, look more like people. You get the idea. These moons essentially dictate the breed of cat that the Khajiits will be. Well, remember how Alduin the Dragon has a portal in Skuldafn that allows him to access Sovngarde? Evidently, other dragons seem to have portals that allow them to access these moons. Members of the community have long since speculated whether or not there could be portals to other dimensions similar to Alduin's possessed by other characters in the game for a very long time. However, that always just seemed like wild conspiracy theory stuff that Bethesda never really reinforced with the lore. That was until the arrival of the Elder Scrolls Online's Elsewhere DLC expansion. You see, the Elder Scrolls Online Elsewhere DLC takes the player and company to the region of Elsewhere, the Khajiit homeland, and expands a considerable amount upon the Khajiit's lore and history. The main questline of this DLC revolves around a recent dragon invasion of Elsewhere by evil dragons. Sound familiar? And during the quest, Jode's Core, we access one of these moons, Jode, through a location known as the Gates of Anaquina, I butchered that pronunciation, in Elsewhere, and we have to defend the gates from hostile forces. Unfortunately, we don't really learn that much about the nature of these moons, or what's powering these gates, or what weird magical powers these dragons have access to, but still, it's pretty neat to know that they're associated. Anyway, with that, we are going to wrap up. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode of 5 or maybe 6 tiny details you may still have missed in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Let me know in the comments down below if we're still capable of keeping up with you guys. Let me know if you know of any of these details, have heard of them before, where you got them from. I'm very interested in this information. Also, many of you have probably noticed that we've very slowly been pumping videos out back again for the first time in somewhere around a year. We intend to keep that going, keep that up. Right now, we're actually even looking for new members to join the team. At the moment, we are very interested in getting guys with really, really good PCs to help us capture gameplay. So if you have a really strong PC and are interested in joining and helping out, let me know. There will be an email address in the comment section where you can submit a sort of application. Just leave your system specs and whatnot. Maybe if you have any Skyrim gameplay, share it and get back to me. Definitely, please, oh my gosh, please apply if you have strong mono author experience. That is very, very helpful when it comes to capturing gameplay. But anyway, with all of that, we are going to wrap up. Thanks again for stopping by, everybody, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.